everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Deborah, aka the Sunset Girl Creates, and today is our Friday Crochet or Knit with Me. We will be working on our blanket Illuminations by Felted Button. We are getting close. We've got the first 2, 4, and 6 colors done. We are working on our 8th, 7th, and 8th color. Our yarn comes from Yarn Cafe and Dragon Horns yarn, and then when I was at the Stitches conference, I bought a whole bunch of minis that I kind of just bound up, and I forgot for some reason not to put their bands in them. So I know that I got them from Stitches, and that's about all I know from that. So those are the yarns. Most of the yarns we're using will be Yarn Cafe or the Dragon Horde yarns. There are a few, just so that I had enough to finish the blanket. I added some of the samples that I had at home from going to the Stitches conference. I bought a bunch of those. I also bought a bunch of yarns. I will be using one of the sets of yarns to work on the sweater I have going. I've thought about it. I'm going to look at it, and at this point I plan on continuing to work on it. It is a knitted sweater, so you will see it, but right now we are working on our Illuminations blanket, so we'll continue to work on that today. I also decided, since we're doing the Diamond Art Club vlog, and we're learning lots about things we can do and how crafts and diamond art can help you a lot, mentally and physically, right? Because it lets you really concentrate on something and really get in and do something, right? So I thought, well, let's see what we can come up with for crochet. And I should have looked on Felted Button, but I didn't, so I apologize. I did find a website called Crochet. It's crochet.com, and it's We Crochet. And they have a bunch of what they call guides. They're similar to blogs, right? They're telling us how to do things and giving us information, right? And so part of learning a craft is not just learning the stitches, right? It's also about understanding your tools. So right now we're going to work on, during our current crochet and knit with me series, we are going to be reading from the We Crochet guides. And the first one is called Your Guides to Crochet Hooks. Okay, that's the first one we're going to read. It is the second one. The first one, I'm not in a position to go over the basic crochet stitches. I just found the article before we got started. I have to admit I didn't look before I thought about it, and I'm like, oh, I forgot to do that. So I did find this one, We Crochet. And it's a guide to the hook. So we're going to learn about our crochet hook, right? I'm not going to use this one as a demo for you to understand. We'll use this one. It's a bigger one, and it'll be easier for you to see with this hook, okay? Of the different things a hook has. So if you're new to crochet, you may wonder why there are so many different types of crochet hooks. There are so many crochet hooks out there. You have the lighted ones, you have ones that have plastic grips on them that are metal. This one happens to all be plastic. It does light up, but I have to pull this, so let's pull the tab, and you will see that it lights up. It's not working very well. I'm not sure why it's not working. It could be the batteries are just misplaced. I am not sure what the issue may be, but I did pull out the sticker, and you know, these aren't perfect. I have another one that doesn't quite work. I do have my F, this does work. So if we want to see the lighted, I don't know if you could even see it. Can you see that it's illuminated, the tip? So the tip has a light on it. So your tip, where your hook is, you can see it at night. It illuminates that tip. So we're going to continue learning about the hook. And so let's see what else it has to say. How do you figure out which one to use? The answer is simple, right? I'm going to read this and crochet at the same time. I can have it on my lap and actually crochet. When we get to the anatomy of the actual crochet hook, I will stop and we'll look at the crochet hook, okay? The answer is simple. One size does not fit all. And how do you figure out which one to use? The answer is simple. One does not fit all. Every crocheter is different, right? So they're all different. We each crochet in our own unique way, and we make a variety of different projects. So let us help you choose the right crochet hook for you. So let's look at the anatomy of a crochet hook, right? So here's our crochet hook. Okay, so the first thing you're going to find is the head. In this very end, this tip on the end of the hook is your head, okay? And then you have the hook itself, which is where you catch your yarn. So you see this hook right here? This hook lets it catch the yarn, right? Then you have what's called the throat of the crochet hook, and this is where your yarn comes up and down as you're doing it. Your different loops and everything all come onto that. Then you have your shaft, which is the main part of your hook, and usually you have some kind of handle in the middle. This one has the black middle to catch onto it. So that is the anatomy of a crochet hook, okay? So now, which hook should I use? Crochet hooks typically fall into two different categories, and crochet fans usually have a preference for one or the other. Often this preference is as simple as, oops, I should have paid attention to what I was doing. I missed a step. I messed that one all up. Okay, that's where I'm off. Okay. Often this preference is as simple as liking the type of hook you used when you learned to crochet. So what did you learn to crochet? Have you learned to crochet? Do you know how to crochet? I mean, if you don't know how to crochet, we can do some crochet videos. So let's try to figure out which one is the best. So which hook for you, not for me. Just because I have a hook that works for me does not mean that a hook is going to work for you, right? The same hook, just because it works for me, does not mean it's going to work for you. So crochet hooks typically fall into two different categories, and crochet fans usually have a preference for one or the other. Often this preference is as simple as liking the type of hook you used when you learned to crochet. So if you can remember what you learned to crochet on, that's typically what you're going to reach for. I learned to do it on the thin, skinny metal ones. I have some, but I don't have them right here with me. So inline hooks. So inline hooks have pointy heads. So this one's got a pointy head, right? So this one's an inline hook. It has a pointy head, right? So this is the head of our crochet hook is the end, and it's pointy, right? That are the same size as their shafts, and it is the same, nope, it's bigger than the shaft. So see, it's bigger than the shaft. You see this tall? It goes up and it's just higher than the shaft. Okay. Some crocheters feel that that shape of an inline hook helps create uniform size stitches and contributes to consistent tension. And then you have tapered hooks. So tapered hooks often have a rounded head with a smaller throat than the shaft and larger shaft length. Okay, so with this one, it's really hard to tell because my crochet hook has the lighted part on it, okay? So we're not looking at just a straight crochet hook, right? Often the rounded head, smaller throat than the shaft, and the longer shaft length. Some crocheters find it easier to get the head through stitches and like the additional length of the extra crochet mobility. I'm not sure. This one I believe is a tapered. I actually almost think it's an inline. The way I look at it, I think that I use inline most of the time. They are what I favor. Some crocheters find it easier to get the head through stitches, like the additional length for extra crochet mobility. It all comes down to your personal preference. We suggest experimenting with both styles of crochet hooks to see which suits you best. I've used many crochet hooks over the time of my life, right? And so because I've done that, I've had a lot of practice to find which crochet hooks I liked. Now, I know a lot about crochet, and I have the education and the knowledge to share as we go through the articles. I wanted to preface that sometimes when it comes to knitting, I am new to knitting. I've done some extensive research on knitting and have learned a lot of ins and outs of knitting, but that doesn't mean I've learned all the knitting, right? So we need to think about it. And the next one is the hold, right? So how do I hold my crochet hook? There are many different ways to hold your crochet hook. The way you choose will depend on the type of crochet project you're working on, as well as what's comfortable for you. Most people choose from two main grips. The first one is a pencil grip. That is definitely not how I crochet with a pencil grip. I don't think I can. Your hook is held like a pencil with a 3-fingered pinch, okay? Shown at the top image, okay? That's one way. That is not comfortable for me. The knife grip. The hook is held like a steak knife with your last 3 fingers controlling the motion of the hook, shown in the bottom image. So you're holding it like a knife, like you do a knife, okay? I don't do the knife. I just sit and hold my crochet hook like right here and grab my hand. So I guess I do everything but put my finger out, right? I hold everything exactly the same, except that I hold my finger down here and not up here. And you'll probably see that my finger goes up there. So let's see how it's been so long. I've not taken apart my own crocheting, but let's see how I work, right? How do I do it? I hold it just like the steak knife, except I don't have my finger out. That's the only difference. I like to grab the whole grip, right? But I put my thumb up here, right? Sometimes my thumb goes up here to help balance things out. And so you really have to just practice and see what's comfortable in your hand, okay? I have had many years crocheting. I've done so many blankets, I don't even know where to start, you know, and it seems like every time I make a blanket, it disappears from my house. So we've covered the 2 main ways to hold a crochet hook here, but there are several more. As you progress in your crochet journey, you will find that some grips are more effective for certain types of crochet than others. Keep in mind that there is no right or wrong way to hold your crochet hook. Find the way that fits best for you. So, What is the best way to hold a crochet hook for you? Think about it. Think of what's comfortable, you know? As we become crocheters, and we've been doing it for long periods of time, we stop thinking about the basics because we've already conquered the basics, right? We think, what can we do next? What can we add to our blanket to make it a little bit different than last time, right? And so that's kind of where a lot of designers come from. What kind of pattern can I make that's not been out there before? And it's so hard to make new patterns because we have so many crochet patterns. Crochet has always been the most, pretty much in the United States, the most popular type of crafting when it comes to creating. If you go over to Europe, you're going to find more knitting than you are crocheting, okay? So it really just depends on where you're coming from. In London, they're really, really big on knitting. Every time I spent my time in London, if I was crocheting, people wanted to know what I was doing. If I was knitting, there was never a question. So, in the United States, we do both, right? It really just depends on where your heritage comes from. What did you learn? I'm not saying that there are not crocheters in the UK. There are crocheters. I know some, I followed some of the best crocheters, and some of them are from the UK. So I'm not saying that crochet is not done in the UK. I'm just saying it's not as popular, and that's only from my own experience. I could be wrong. I was only in certain parts of London. I did not have time to study all of London, okay? I was over there for my regular day-to-day job at the time. So I didn't have the time. I had a couple weekends to go explore a little bit, but that's about the most, and some evenings. So I didn't have a lot of time to go exploring London, right? So there's different size crochet hooks, right? They start really low and then they go up. Okay, so 2.25 millimeters is your B1. That is your smaller one. I'm using an F. So I'm all the way at the 3.75. So you can see that there's 2.25, 2.5, 2.75, 3.125, 3.25, and then you get to 3.5. So you have lots of hooks before you even get to this one. I have all of those smaller hooks. I used to do a lot of lace crochet. I haven't done it in a long, long time. I enjoyed doing lace crochet, but now I just want to enjoy making blankets or diamond paintings or whatever my fancy. I don't want somebody to come in and say, okay, it's time to learn this now, right? And nobody really did that. That was really only my brain telling me it was time to learn something new, because I like to do different things. I don't like to do the same thing as everybody else. And so sometimes I kind of go off the deep end where most people don't travel. But let's make those travels. Let's make those kind of connections, right? So, crochet hook sizes, right? Crochet hooks are measured in millimeters, and they're listed as MM. But also have a corresponding letter from the alphabet and or number, US size. So the US has a size and a number that they assign, okay? And it's just different. So this one doesn't have the number on it. It is only F and 4 millimeters. So if you want to find the equivalent to this, that is a number, you can find the conversion chart, and a conversion chart will tell you going from millimeters to US numbers. You can find a chart that brings that out. though these can vary on the manufacturer. So sometimes you might find a 4.0 in one brand and a 4.0 in another brand, and they're really not the same. You would think they were. Trust me, they're not always, right? Most of them are pretty consistent across the board. It's really, you have to watch the cheap knockoff ones that are more able to be different sizes, right? And it's really only just the manufacturing process. It's not that big of a difference. It's only a little difference. So it's really nothing to stress on, right? So different hook sizes can be chosen for different purposes. If you want your crochet fabric to have an open, airy weave, choose a larger hook. So that's why I went from the pattern it asked for, a 3.5. I chose a larger hook, only a 4.0, because I still want to stay within a good range to work on my blanket and get what I'm doing consistently. But it needs to be bigger than what the actual pattern calls for, because I wanted mine to be a little more airy, because I live in Florida and I don't need it to be as thick. Choose the larger hook. If you want a fabric to be dense, like minimal holes, or like Amigurumi, use a smaller hook. So with like Amigurumi, whatever that is, I can never get the right pronunciation of that. It's basically, you're doing is, those are the crocheted animals and different things that you see that come portrayed. Those are animals, so stuffed animals like that. So each yarn usually has a recommendation, and let me see if I have a yarn slip that I might not have thrown away yet. I don't think so. I threw the last of the other ones away, but it may have been into this garbage can. Nope, I think my husband emptied it out already. Yep, it's not in this one. They've already been. But we'll just kind of go over them. It has a recommendation for what hook size to use. These are from hand dyed. So hand dyed usually just tells you lower sock 85-15, 85 yards, 20 grams, 87 yards, 20 grams. So this is how like a similar would come out if it is, let me see if I can get it to, it's backwards, but anyways, you can see it doesn't show what hook size to use. Usually when you're working with particular yarn sizes, you are aware from your history, or even researching it, to figure out which hook size you want, right? You can go on and say, I have a 3 yarn. What will that 3 yarn, what are the best hooks to use? And it will tell you what the best hook to use was for that. It will also let you know that whether it's going to work with your yarn, right? So you always have to do what? What do you have to do when you're getting ready to make a project? And especially one that is size driven, the most important is to do your what? Your original mock-up, right? So you want to make sure that the pattern you're getting ready to use works with the yarn you have. Do a swatch. Pick up the yarn, pick up a crochet hook that you similar to what you want to use, and see if that yarn works with that hook. The best thing to do is to do a swatch. If you do a swatch and go 20 stitches across and 20 rows up, you have a nice size swatch if you're using the smaller yarns. you want to do less on your swatch. So your swatch should be about 6 inches is really where your swatch should be, right? You got 6 inches across and 6 inches tall. And so that's really what you're trying to do, right? And remember, we're doing inches, and a lot of patterns outside the United States are all done in centimeters. So you will need to do the conversion. I think the conversion is 2.34 or 54, one or the other, but you can look it up on the internet, and it will help you convert those centimeters to millimeters, to inches, to feet, to yards, to, yeah, I looked it up the other day. I was interested. Every once in a while I look up wacky and crazy things on the internet. So, each yarn label usually has a recommendation for what hook size to use with what particular yarn. So whatever yarn that you bought, the yarn label should be telling you, especially if you buy it in a store, right? That's why it says usually. Use the hook size recommendation as a jumping off point, right? It may not be what you're looking for. This hook size called for a 3.5, but the 3.5 was too tight. So I upped it to make it a lighter, airier fabric, right? If you looked, you can see the holes in the fabric. That's the point, okay? I wanted it to be airy. If I didn't want it to be airy like this, I could have used the 3.5. It would have been a much tighter crochet, and it would have been much tighter of a blanket. So really try to make sure that you're doing it on something that makes sense for you. You can always move and adjust your stitches as necessary, right? So you see me moving my stitches. That's the nice thing about crochet, is you can move and adjust your stitches and put them kind of where, if they don't quite get where you want them to be, you can adjust them to any size, right? So that's really where you're at. What kind of adjustments do you want to make? And what kind of crochet do you want to do? That's really what it's all about. So it's a jumping off point to help you figure out which hook to use. But do not pay attention to the gauge swatch recommendation if you're making a crochet pattern that needs to fit a particular way. But do pay attention. It says pay attention. So if you're trying to get a gauge swatch to be a certain thing, always start off with the first recommendation, right, on your gauge swatch. I don't have a gauge swatch here. I do have some, but they're not here in front of me. They are in the office. So the material. So some are made out of wood. So you have wooden crochet hooks. Wooden crochet hooks are made of wood such as bamboo or composite of dried wood. Okay, I'm trying to find the center pull from the ball. That's what I found. And I want to make sure that I get this wrapped back around so that it doesn't get caught up with my yarn I'm pulling. So you want to be really careful with your balls. Okay, so the outside of mine, it's been tossed around a gazillion times, so it could probably use another caking up. But with the wool yarn, I only cake once. You don't want to cake more than once on a wool yarn because the wool yarn will stretch, right? And then it's not going to have the consistency you're looking for. So you have to be really, really careful when you're doing yarn and when you're choosing yarn. If it's something that you want to spin and spin and spin and practice to making cakes, wool is not the one you want to practice with. Wool is a very fibrous material, and so it stretches, and when it stretches, sometimes it stretches out, right? A lot of wool has different kinds of qualities, right? And that's gonna be awful. I gotta see. And then the third one, when you're doing, like, I'm doing my original, just my pull up, right? My original 3 chains for my first crochet. And I want to make sure that this one is slightly larger than my normal crochet, because then that allows me at the end of the row to find that last chain. Because what I do is I connect my rows to my last chain. And so that's what you saw me doing at the last, was trying to make sure that I got to that last chain. So I do 3, and so I connect to 3. So, like bamboo or composite dyed wood, like a radiant crochet hook. So they have radiant crochet hooks. Wood, like wood is warm to touch and a little slower to slide than aluminum hooks. I don't have wooden crochet hooks, but I do have wooden knitting needles, and wood is much different to use than to use plastic or glass. It doesn't, okay? And it doesn't slide as good as aluminum hooks, okay? So aluminum is what you normally see, right? If you go in the store and you're looking, most of the hooks that you see on the shelf, right, at the craft store, are the aluminum hooks. You'll also see some plastic and metal, and that's about it. You don't usually see the wooden too much. You usually have to find those online. They provide a nice earthy feel when you're crocheting, and are a great choice when working with more slippery yarns, especially non-organic fibers like acrylic, because they add some additional grip to keep the yarn from sliding too fast. So, if you're learning and you're in the beginning years of crochet, right, you're going to want to try to find a crochet hook that doesn't slide too much and that doesn't slide too fast for you, right? I want it to slide fast. As you can see, the more I do, the faster I go. And that's because I want it to slide fast, right? See how my crochet hook is just sliding through the yarn really quickly? With the wooden, it's going to catch more, it's going to grip more. Now you got to understand, right now I'm working with wool, which is different than acrylic, okay? Acrylic is very slippery in a sense that's different than when you're using like a plastic or a metal hook. Now, I grew up learning to crochet on acrylic yarn because I grew up in the United States, and we usually had acrylic yarn on the shelves, okay? So that's what I grew up learning to crochet with. I recently found the wool yarns about 10-11 years ago, and they are amazing to work with, right? But they can be kind of difficult at times too, right? Because they're animal hair. Some people find it very scratchy. It depends on the wool that you have. I typically use superwash wool, which means it's been cleaned really well. And a lot of the stickiness is gone, right? So it's not as itchy and stuff like that. But we'll get more into yarns later, okay? So our plastic crochet hooks, that's what I'm using. I'm using a plastic crochet hook. I don't use metal very often, only because these ones allow me to grip better and hold on to the hook and do what I need to do versus what my hands sometimes want to do. Okay, so now I've had to change from just a regular crochet hook to more of an ergonomic crochet hook, right? So the nice thing about crocheting is you can get ergonomic crochet hooks. You cannot get them for knitting. Knitting needles are knitting needles. That's it, because your yarn has to stay on the needle So you can't have anything blocking that. There's no ergonomic knitting needles. So, plastic crochet hooks are often made of bright colors, bright colored plastic. They are inexpensive and readily available, so you can find them all over. And they're not expensive. That is, if you buy just the plastic ones that you find in the store, right? So, plastic crochet hooks are also lightweight and fairly slippery and available in many sizes. Most jumbo hooks commonly used for afghans and rug making are made with plastic. So, if you watch Mrs. Crochet and Coffee, she has the big yarn, and sometimes she does a crochet with me kind of WIP and chat similar to this. And she uses a big hook. You can get on there and see that big hook she uses. It's quite big. It's bigger than I want to use. But some people find that they enjoy using those bigger hooks. She also lives up in North Dakota where it gets very cold, so she needs to have those warm blankets, right? So she needs those thick, warm blankets. So working with that thick wool or acrylic or yarn that she's using, she can make a big blanket, and it will be a nice thick blanket and a warming blanket. I live in Florida. I like lightweight blankets. So just remember that there is a wide variety, and there's people out there that like the smaller hooks and the larger hooks. So plastic hooks are great for beginners because of the low price and other features. However, they can sometimes have ridges where the seam of the plastic mold comes together. No problem, just file it with a nail file. And I was seeing if I had any seams on any of mine, and I don't. Or they can snap if used with heavy yarn or tight tension. So if you're a tight knitter, plastic probably is not going to be your best forte when it comes to the smaller hooks. Now if you're using a bigger hook, your plastic will work. I mean, it's a thick hook, it's hard to break no matter how much tension you put on it. So remember that. But you know, wooden ones are almost as easy to break, if not easier to break, if you're not careful and protect them. My knitting needles are in a case, and they stay in a case, and they're only pulled out, used, and then put back. I bought them to make hats for my grandkids. They're so much easier to use. They are more hat and sock related, so that's why I bought them. Wait, you'll see me. I have some socks to make soon too for my husband. He likes the wool socks I make. He wears them because his feet get cold, and so I'm the type of person that if my feet are hot, I can't function. So I leave my feet open. He's always raised in Maine, so in Maine you didn't go anywhere without shoes on, right? So he was raised with wearing shoes all the time, and he did the whole time we've been married up until about 2.5 years ago. And I found these flip-flops. He didn't like flip-flops because flip-flops go between your toes. But you know, they've started making those men's flip-flops where you can just pull it over the edge of top of your foot, right? And he likes those, so he uses those now. So he wears those more often. But in the afternoons and evenings, his feet do get cold. Since he's so used to having shoes on, his body doesn't know that it doesn't need shoes, right? So I'll make him wool socks, and I have a bunch of yarns, and I've got to start making him some more socks. Plastic hooks are low price and lightweight and make them perfect for travel. Okay, So ergonomic crochet hooks, that's similar to what this is. It's the light one, but it's got more of a bigger grip. So ergonomic crochet hooks have large handles that are easier to grip and can reduce pain associated with yarn crafting. So because my hands have issues, and it's not from yarn crafting, mine have issues because of the fibromyalgia, and so having a bigger hook helps me. It gives me something more to grip on. And I'll tell you, with a crochet hook, I need ergonomic, right? So I always have ergonomic on. Whereas with my knitting needles, I don't necessarily need those. So if you experience hand fatigue when crocheting, you may find that an ergonomic crochet hook helps. They have some We Crochet Brights and Clover Soft Touch for you to choose from. So if you want to go to the crochet.com website and under We Crochet, you can find those ergonomic crochet hooks. So steel crochet hooks. Now I like steel. I have to say, I grew up with steel. I learned to crochet on steel, and steel is still my favorite. If I could get my hook like this and not be plastic and be steel, I'd be so much happier. But because I want it to be lighted, I deal with the plastic, okay? Plastic doesn't slide as much as the steel does. The steel is a nice soft finish that allows it to slide better. So steel crochet hooks are generally used for crocheting with thread and lace weight yarn. And they are, but you can also get metal steel crochet hooks for regular crocheting as well. The steel keeps these tiny hooks from bending while making projects like lace, doily, and beading. Note, the numbering system for steel crochet hooks is inconsistent from brand to brand, referring to millimeter measurements when refer to the millimeter measurement when looking for a steel hook. So because steel hooks are made all over the place, and they're not consistently, you have to really check on your number. So if it's 4 millimeters, you want it 4 millimeters across the board, no matter what kind of hook you have, right? Doesn't matter whether you're using a plastic hook, a steel hook, a ergonomic hook, any kind of crochet hook, right? It doesn't matter what that crochet hook is made of. Each of them do something a little bit different. But as you get better, it doesn't matter which one you have. You can learn to use it on all yarns. So remember, just because certain hooks are created more to help you with doing something easier or better, make sure that you're really thinking through what the fabric you're using and what you're using those crochet hooks for. It will make a big difference, okay? And if you take whatever you have, you can continue to learn. If you learn on a new material with whatever you have, you're going to be able to crochet with it no matter what, right? So I always use the same hook over and over and over so that I have consistency across the board. And so that's why I stick with my Yarn Story lighted crochet hooks. Crochet hooks are made in additional materials such as aluminum and bamboo. We Crochet will be expanding their crochet inventory soon, hook inventory soon. Stay tuned for product updates, okay? So they're going to be updating the product soon on We Crochet. Find the breast crochet hooks at We Crochet. Let's do the sales pitch. Now that you know some background info about crochet hooks, you're ready to try them out. There's no real way to know which hook is perfect for you until you test drive some. So play with the hooks. Get a couple different kinds of hooks. All of the same. It's if you want to do a practice and to see which hook works best for you. whether it be bamboo, whether it be wood, whether it be plastic, whether it be aluminum, whether it be steel. Most of your crochet hooks you find in the store are aluminum, unless they're the tiny ones. So, I'll be right back. Hold on. Okay, let's go ahead and get this finished. The perfect hook for you. Find the best crochet hook right here at We Crochet. Now that you know some background info about crochet hooks, you're ready to try them out. There's no real way to know which hook is perfect for you until you test drive some. Get started crocheting with our bright crochet hook set here. So it is a place where they sell, but they also have a blog, similar to how we've been doing the Diamond Art Club blog. We're now doing the We Crochet blog, okay? And we're just going to work through the various crochet articles, right? I'll keep this open. We'll keep finding the next ones. And we'll go on. And we'll just go through and find the different articles, and we'll read the articles, and we'll see how those articles take us, right? Where do they take us? Where are we going to go? I don't know. We've been some fun places with diamond painting in our articles. We've learned a lot, haven't we? In diamond painting, we've learned some of the stuff that it can help us with. We've learned about our tools. So we've learned, we're busy learning lots, right? And I may not have all of the knowledge in my head, and sometimes it's easier for me to read an article. But as I'm reading through the article, that knowledge comes back and I share it with you. And that's where my knowledge comes. My knowledge comes from my deep in-depth of crafting all my life. And so with that said, I want to thank you all for joining. I know I did yesterday, but I'd like to thank our new subscribers. We have 2 new subscribers. I'd like to thank them and welcome to the channel. And if you want to, so I want to thank everybody for joining the video as well. And if you like this video, a thumbs up would be great. If you don't like this video, thumbs down is fine. But let me say, leave a comment in the comment section below so that we know why you didn't want and like this video. If you want to be part of the Sunset Girl Creates family, which we would love to have you, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button below. Once you hit that subscribe button below, you'll also see next to it a little bell icon that will allow you to know when I upload a video every time. So with that said, I want to thank you all and wish you a wonderful Friday, and I'll see you next Friday for some more crochet tips. Have a great day. Bye bye, y'all.